It happened suddenly, leading to a lockdown at the Pentagon and an adjacent metro station. A gunman fatally shot after wounding 2 police officers. Now we're learning details about the shooter. Authorities say he acted alone, and it turns out he had a history of mental health problems. CNN's Dan Simon is in Hollister, California.
Wolf, the parents of John Patrick Bedell put out a statement today saying that their son's actions were a result of an illness and not because of a defective character. We know that Bedell had been committed to a mental institution at least 3 or 4 times, according to the local sheriff here in Hollister, California. The sheriff today describing an incident that took place in Amarillo, Texas on January 3rd when a deputy pulled Bedell over for speeding, and apparently that deputy was also concerned about Bedell's mental health. In fact, he called Bedell's parents. The sheriff picks up the story from here.
The next day, they filed a missing persons report on him because there's a history of mental health problems with him that the family's been dealing with for apparently a number of years. So that prompted them to go ahead and file this report.
Bedell eventually returned home, but his mother was apparently concerned over a receipt she saw for $600 from a Sacramento shooting range, though we don't know if that was for a gun or for some form of ammunition, but obviously something that the parents were very concerned about. Wolf.
All right, Dan in Hollister, California. Here's a question. Is the Pentagon shooting part of some sort of emerging pattern of incidents? John Avlon is the author of Wingnuts, How the Lunatic Fringe is Hijacking America. He's also a columnist for thedailybeast.com. He's joining us now from New York. You remember a couple of weeks ago, a pilot flew into an IRS building in Austin, Texas. You got an intriguing piece on the Daily Beast today suggesting you see some sort of pattern here. Tell our viewers what you see.
Well, what you've got here is not just evident mental illness, Wolf, but he does seem to be imbibing deeply from the conspiracy theories that percolate around the internet, what I call the fright wing of American politics, the place beyond right and left, but where conspiracy theories really take on a whole life of their own. He appears in his online writings to have been a 9/11 truther, someone who believed that the World Trade Center was demolished from within rather than attacked by Al-Qaeda. He refers to conspiracy theories surrounding the John F. Kennedy assassination. And a lot of this stuff is the kind of things you see when you troll around the internet at some of these wingnut sites, the theories that get pumped up there. And for some unhinged folks, they can take them too far, and that's what we've seen certainly today and also in the case of the IRS plane. What else jumps out at you as you assess yesterday's incident? Just the commonalities we've seen. You know, there's a drumbeat along these fright wing sites about government control, the rise of martial law. Really, they're sort of pumping up an apocalyptic urgency that some folks can take them too far. The 9/11 Truth movement is part of that. This gentleman, in some of the writings we've seen, seems to be virulently anti-Bush and Cheney, more so than any comments specifically about President Obama that have emerged yet. But it's part of a larger trend we're seeing of some folks, especially in the last year to 18 months, taking some of these paranoid fantasies from online and translating them into violent action. And that's something that we should all be concerned about and be aware of. So you can't really pigeonhole it to be the far left or the far right, can you? That's exactly right. And that's why I call it the fright wing. Not the right wing or the left wing. It's the fright wing. It's this murky ground of conspiracy theory that exists well beyond the far left and the far right. But it's gaining traction in the minds of some folks, and unfortunately in the minds of some unstable folks. But you did see that report that just came out by the Southern Law Poverty Center suggesting that in the first year of the Obama administration, there has been a rise in some of these extremist groups. There has been a huge rise, and that report is very indicative of what's been going on in this first year of the Obama administration in particular. A massive rise in the number of patriot groups and militia groups, which can be classified as hatred groups. Really, these groups that are really trying to recruit from anti-government impulses, and many of them do gain a lot of their adherents from people who believe that the government is out to get them. So there's been a massive outgrowth in these kind of extremist groups. It's one of the things that happens. You know, hate is a cheap and easy recruiting tool, but hate leads to violence, and that's sometimes what we see. That's certainly what we saw yesterday at the Pentagon. But if there are mentally disturbed individuals out there and they could get access to a weapon, for example, there's apparently not a whole lot that someone can do about that. Well, lone gunmen are a problem throughout history, and that's the real problem here. It's rarely the broad ideological movement. It's the one individual who breaks off. But as we saw in the 1990s, when there was another rise in the so-called patriot movement of that time with Timothy McVeigh, you know, it's sometimes the lone individual who's really had this stuff seeped into his soul who can cause terrible, terrible damage. Yesterday, the two guards thankfully survived more with superficial wounds. But we are seeing this upgrowth in extremist groups. And when you connect the dots, it's something for us all to be aware of.
John Avlon, thanks very much.
Thank you.